morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the English news from Djibouti channels. Here are the headlines of our editions. World Food Day celebrated in Douda this morning under the auspices of the head of state. On continental news, in the national also the president received UN and the secretary for political affairs. On continental news, in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa promised to speed up the process of land restitution to South Africa. Welcome if you join us in Djibouti channel to act for further to annihilate anger in the world by 2030 is possible. Is this under this slogan that this year was celebrated World Agricultural Day, October 6th, each year was decreed by the United Nations World Day of Agriculture. It serves to sound the alarm about the negative consequences of disparities in the world, where people suffer from serious diseases because of their obesity, while others succumb to malnutrition or hunger. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, anger statistics in the world are rising. The FAO urges in countries and organizations involved in the food and agriculture sector to relaunch the fight against hunger to achieve one of the Sustainable Development Goals. One of the UN recommendations mentioned the need to achieve the goal of eliminating global hunger zero by 2030. And more than enough to feed all the inhabitants of the planet Earth. It's more important to put an end to imbalance in which whole population in certain regions of the world are subject to the consequences of armed conflicts, desertifications and natural disaster due to climate change and other inequities in international trade. The wealth and livelihoods of some countries are plundered by others' wealth power. Anger leads to disaster, which threatens stability and peace in the world. To mark this World Food Day, a big ceremony was organized this morning in Douda. This ceremony was placed under the auspices of the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, who recalled after a period when the world food productions made progress and was marked by a better distributions. Upon his arrival at the scene of the ceremony, the head of state was warmly welcomed by the many officials present. Then all come together to say stop the world hungers and point out that 80% of the world's poor live in rural areas where they depend on agriculture, fishing or forestry. According to the last FAO report, more than 8,000 to 2,100 million people are undernourished. Conflict, extreme weather events like likened to climate change, the recessions and the rapidly rising levels of overweight and obesity are reversing progress made in the fight against hunger and malnutrition, according to the representatives of the United Nations system. For the Minister of Decentralization, the goal Zero Hunger call for a transformation of the rural economy. The world can raise the bar and achieve this goal if all continents, countries, sectors and professions join forces based on results and best practice. Usually a day like today serves as an opportunity for policymakers that we are to bring out reflections and proposals around the thematic designed, but of course this does not distance us also to draw up a small report of achievement to evaluate the distance traveled, but also and especially to measure the distance that remains to be traveled. It's undeniable today that thanks to the economic development policies of access to health or to housing, but also to education, Djiboutians households see their living conditions improve. The Minister of Agriculture said that zero hunger, meaning acting together to ensure that everyone has access to safe, health and nutritious food. Countries are encouraged to strengthen their governance and a coordination mechanism to facilitate dialogue, but put in place incentive for different sectors and actors to collaborate. For its part, the head of state stressed the 2080 World Food Day aims to identify concrete actions and focus on the real issues that have nullified recent progress. Let's listen to him.
We are gathered here today in Duda, part of Artas region, to celebrate this time and as countries around the world as every year the World Food Day under the auspice of the FAO, which has chosen the theme Acting for the Future, Zero Hunger in 2030, something possible. But to reach this goal, the challenges are immeasurable, because when I speak to you, more than 821 million people suffer from hunger and malnutrition. World Food Day this year aimed to identify concrete actions to fight against hunger and malnutrition, especially in rural areas. It must be remembered that 80% of the world poor live in rural areas where they depend on agriculture, fishing or livestock. This is why zero hunger undoubtedly implies a transformation of the economy at the national, regional and international level. At the national level, our country is facing one of the lowest rainfall level in the world. This is why we have opted to develop programs adapted to our arid ecosystem and focus mainly on the developments of date palms cultivation, introductions of improved breed goats to increase milk productions in particular, because at all time milk and dates have been the staple food of our ancestors in pastoral settings. In addition to these two programs, we are now promoting poultry farming in different parts of the country. With regard to the developments of date palm, it should be emphasized that this tree, by its genetic constitution, is one of the best adapted to the chronic droughts and salinities of water and soil that prevail in many regions of our country. It was therefore natural for us to choose this oasis-style culture. Convinced of its multiple interests, the promotion of date palm has become a priority for the government as part of the National Food Security and Poverty Alleviation Program. This political will has resulted in the extensions of Pheloniculus area and the establishment of an in vitro multiplication laboratory for date palms. Fully funded by the state, this laboratory used the latest in vitro culture-based plant biotechnology techniques to ensure the mass propagation and rapid spread of high quality and high value date palm varieties such as Kalas, Barhi and especially Medjool, which is distinguished organoleptically by its honey taste and its big caliber, hence its name Queen of Dates. Thanks to its current capacity to produce in vitro date palm The challenges of the unavailability of date plant has become a thing of the past on our national scale. At present, the culture laboratory aims to strengthen its capacity to switch to large-scale production of industrial type with an annual production target of 10,000 virtual date palm plants.
The head of state had issues to a call to action to policymakers, the private sectors, as well as the general public, civil society and United Nations agencies. Once again, here is the speech of the president.
Mesdames et messieurs, comme vous le savez, l'élevage pastoral a grand...
While this in vitro culture pilot project has benefited from a national institutional framework favorable to its development, it also owes its success to the perseverance and determinations of the scientific team in technology transfer. As you know, pastoral farming has always been one of the main activities in our country, especially in rural areas. In order to increase the availability of dairy product, the ministry in charge of livestock in collaboration with the FAO has set up a program to improve the production and conservation of animal genetics by importing, in particular in 2016, 45 Alpine goats from Kenya. Thanks to genetic improvement, conservation and sustainable use of local dairy goats breeds, we currently have 226 head of hybrid generation with a productions of more than 1.5 liter per goat per day compared to 0.5 liter per day and per local breed goats. The goal is to reach 1,500 farmers with a capacity of 100 goats of local hybrid dairy goats and a productions up to 51 liter per day and by breeder with milk productions up to 3 liter per day and per goat. In addition to the promotions of date palm cultivation and the productivity of dairy farming, we are working for the development of chicken farming, which is being increasingly practiced in villages and peri-urban areas of protein and become last year. To improve productivity, new and improved breeds were introduced. To date, it is estimated that there are more than 6,000 chicken in the country and more families are engaged in this type of breeding. Moreover, in order to increase the numbers of genetically improved chicken, we decided to equip ourselves with several solar incubators, an apparatus intended to incubate the fertilized eggs laid by the hens during a period of 20 to 30 days. The world can achieve this ambitious goal of zero hunger if all countries and the different professional sector invest sustainably in the agriculture sector. Before concluding, let me thank the Ministry of Agriculture and its staff who worked tirelessly for the organization and the success of these celebrations of World Food Day.
The president also made a speech in the Somali language stating that this ceremony is dedicated to World Food Day. He said that the hunger is disaster, the worst disaster that must be avoided, and despite the hate and the difficulty, we are no case of hunger. Our country and the Lord had made it easier for us because we have our destiny. We're always ready to support and help people who move from village to cities, and we have given all the necessary to facilitate their taxes. The ceremony also saw the participation of representatives of UN agencies, including, of course, the FAO. This ceremony is also jointly organized by the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister Delegate to the Minister of the Interior, charge of decentralization, and the FAO. After his address, the head of state visited for these occasions where local products were exhibited. It's essentially that the products of the earth, which shows that with the well, much harder and a little water of our arable land can feed. Subsequently, the Minister of Agriculture signed an agreement to plant 10,000 palm trees a year. This agreement was signed under the supervision of the head of state. The President of the Republic received the Under Secretary General of the United Nations of Political Affairs. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, received today, in the middle of the afternoon, the Under Secretary General of the United Nations for Political Affairs, Mr. Rosemary DiCarlo. This day, a tour in the country of the region, the state of exchange and collaborations between the Republic of Djibouti and the United Nations system was discussed during this meeting. The audience was mainly used by the United Nations and the Secretary General of Political Affairs to thank President Guelleh for his valuable assistance to the international community in the regulations of many crises, including humanitarian crises, which regularly rock this part of the world. And after that, in her speech, the Undersecretary thanks to the President for the warm welcome.
Earlier with the Foreign Minister about the positive developments that are taking place in your region. Also to discuss with them the excellent cooperation that the United Nations has with Djibouti and our desire to work even more closely with Djibouti over the coming weeks and months because we understand that there are some tremendous opportunities now. There are challenges, but there are many opportunities, and we certainly want to be a partner with Djibouti in taking up these opportunities.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Corporations, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, who took part in this meeting, also spoke his speech. He welcomed the visit of the UN Under Secretary General of Political Affairs in our country. His presence here today reflects the continuing interest of the United Nations in our country, he said. As for the tour is conducting in the country of the region, it's worthy of evidence that the United Nations is determined the support of our sub-region in the dynamics of peace and undeniable source of development with which she has knocked little. A delegation of the National Assembly led by the President Mohammed Ali Hamad participates since October 4th the 139th General Assembly of Parliamentary Union, which officially opened Sunday in Geneva in Swiss. The foundation brings together more than 1,300 parliamentarians and parliamentary staff from around the world. The work will last until 8th in Geneva. The theme of this meeting will be the crucial role of parliamentarians in promoting peace and development in the area of innovation and technological change. All statutory bodies, including the Governing Council, the Standing Committees, the Committee on the Human Rights of Parliamentarians, but also the Committee on Middle East, questioned the Forum of Women Parliamentarians and the Forum of Young Parliamentarians will exchange during Geneva sessions. The Minister of Labor received his counterpart from Somaliland. The Minister received this morning in He received the Minister of Labor, Women and Social Affairs of Somaliland, Mrs. Hinda Jama Hirsi, who is visiting for 2 days our country. The Minister of Somaliland, accompanied by a strong delegation who are introduced by the Minister of Women and Family, Mrs. Mumina Ahmed Hassan, and the Djiboutian representative in Somaliland, Mr. Hussein Abdullahi Kawalia, and the Somaliland charge affair to Djibouti, Mr. Abdel Fattah Saeed. During this meeting, the Minister of Somaliland said that her visit aims to strengthen relations in different files. In the case of promotions, the file of women and vocational training and social affairs, she said that this meeting aims to explore the reason to order to benefit from Djiboutian experience in the sector of work and the ways and means to promote social action and the advantage of women. For his part, the Djiboutian minister said that his department would spare no effort to bring the experience of Djibouti in the field of labor and administrative reform. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, proceeded this Wednesday along with the Secretary of State of Social Affairs, Mrs. Momina Usman Aden, at the handing over the keys of 10 housing built by the former student of the League Organized Cooperative Building Trades Nasib City. The Director General of the EOJ Foundation, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Usman, and the Director General of Technical Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Abdul Qadir Hamad, and several senior officials attend the end of work ceremony. Before proceeding with the symbolic handing over the keys, the minister and his colleague visited the dwellings and saw firsthand the quality of the work done by the young people who work under the supervisions of the civil engineering inspector, Mr. Ibrahim Ismail, to educational advisor and training. During his reaction at the end of the ceremony, the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training first congratulated the youth of the cooperative of the quality of the serious work and their commitment to the achievement of this site. The Minister also congratulated the Director General of Technical Education and Vocational Training for the guidance and salutary support for these young people. He also did not fail to thank the EOJ Foundation for its support, technical and financial, to this first project carried out by the young cooperative. Finally, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud paid tribute to the initiators of this project and further of Foundation's Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Gile for having believed the capacity of the graduate of the professional training. On continental news, for more detail, let's follow this report.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has promised to speed up the controversial land reform proposed by the ruling African National Congress (ANC) earlier this year. Ramaphosa admitted that his government has been too slow in the process of restitution and distribution of farmlands, stressing that land is a key pillar for economic emancipation and freedom. The land reform has become a hot issue both domestically and internationally since the South African government announced plans to change the constitution, allowing the spoliation of land without compensation. The new law will allow for land to be taken from white farmers and distributed to the landless black majority.
We finish the news of this news edition. Thank you. Goodbye.